Hi there, future Oceans here, just to tell you that this is a bit of a special case because in this episode we lost our fucking minds halfway through and started talking about basically shitposting, which doesn't quite fit into the actual episode. So there's a cut towards the end, and the content that's cut out there will be released in a bit probably on my channel as a special episode. So keep an eye out for that, and yeah, enjoy.
Hello and welcome everybody to the fourth episode of Shonen and Chill, the podcast where we talk about the chapters of Weekly Shonen Jump, of course, of this week. I'm joined, as always, by Zenrotto. Hi, man.
Hello.
And this is a pretty packed week, so let's actually get right into this. And I'm gonna ask the big question: what was your favorite chapter this week?
This is gonna shock a whole lot of people. It was actually Chainsaw Man.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I don't know. A lot of the chapters this week were very action heavy, so it was mostly just the cool little moments and stuff. But Chainsaw Man had a really heartfelt chapter where Denji comes back and Power kind of sacrifices herself for him and gives him a goal that can extend the series beyond just fighting Makima. I think it was a really good chapter. We
Mm-hmm.
got some good stuff coming up from Chainsaw Man, to be sure.
Mm. Yeah, because actually that would be my favorite pick as well this week. Over Jujutsu Kaisen and over My Hero Academia, who even had a chapter this week. Like I feel like Chainsaw Man for the last couple of chapters has been a bit all over the place in a kind of good way, but I feel like ever since Power got banged, um, the cha yes, the chapters were kind of not directionless, but they kind of lacked that sort of emotional quality that Chainsaw Man had for a long time. And now with this chapter, with Power sacrificing herself for Denji, and Denji reaffirming his humanity, we're back. We're like back in peak Chainsaw Man territory. I feel like.
Yeah,
We're,
like once Power was gone and Denji kind of shifted into full chainsaw mode,
mm-hmm,
um, it just kind of felt like it was crazy, just battle, just demon fight, all this
yeah.
constant back-to-back stuff. Everything's just exploding and dying, and Power coming back kind of brought a little bit of humor back to it. And then when she
Mm-hmm,
sacrificed herself for Denji, that kind of brought a little bit of the humanity back to it. And then that
mm-hmm,
last panel is just Denji flashing the peace sign, like, "Hey, we're back. Chainsaw
mm-hmm.
Man is
Yeah.
back in action."
Yeah. It's so nice as well because you look at Chainsaw Man just like first glance and you're like, oh, okay, this is just a bit of incoherent nonsense. But then there's chapters like these that are just genuinely tender and moving moments. The whole like recreation basically of chapter one, because I mean this is what this chapter is. It's a panel for panel recreation and reposing of chapter one. That culminating in Power sacrificing herself again genuinely had me actually like feeling things like it's good. It's a very nice way to tie these characters together again after they were so forcefully separated by Makima. So yeah, no, this was a really good chapter. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yep, it was really good stuff. I like the Denji's notion of just like, I'm okay.
Yeah, yeah.
My life sucked, and I got to do all the stuff I wanted to do, and I think I'm all right. And
Hmm.
then she gives him the goal of finding the Blood Devil and
Hmm.
somehow managing to restore power from him,
Hmm.
or it, I guess. Uh, I don't know. And then it's of course a contract, just like with Pochita in the very beginning.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was the best chapter Chainsaw Man has had in a while, and definitely
Hmm.
my chapter of the week for sure.
Absolutely. Do you think Denji's gonna have any like blood fiend powers now since he did make a contract with
I
Power?
don't know. I hope so, because that
Hmm.
would be awesome.
Hmm.
Um, and he's got that little team up with the little Stitch Face homie here,
Oh yeah,
who
that guy.
is gonna help him out. I honestly don't remember that guy's name. I feel bad about it, but
The same.
yeah. Um, so they're gonna try to break free from Makima, and I don't know. It's hard for me to articulate Chainsaw Man stuff because Chainsaw Man stuff, like you said, for the past couple months has been just an absolute chaos fest. But
Yeah.
it really does feel like we've hit the emotional notes again. It's no longer just silly chaos and violence. And then
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see going forward from here a little bit more of a mature Denji, because Denji's
Mm-hmm.
been kind of
Yes.
an immature shithead for the majority of Chainsaw Man.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see how Power's sacrifice and him sort of accepting that he's got to do this mission to get her back is going to impact him as a person.
Yeah, because I mean, like the first chapter of the series is very much like his physical rebirth into a demon-human hybrid, but he remains, as you said, an immature shithead. And I really hope that this sort of big homage to that is kind of to signal his emotional rebirth in a way, like that he's now at the point where he can progress properly because he now has a goal that's kind of bigger than himself in a way. Because up until now, it was basically just, I want to have good food, I want to touch girls, and that's kind of it. Whereas now it's, I want to reunite with someone who's very dear to me, which is, I don't know, I suppose a bit more of a nuanced goal that could catalyze him into being a bit more of a mature person. But it's Fujimoto, so who the fuck knows where we're going next week?
Yeah, I mean, we could be back at Burger King next week for all we know, but I hope not.
Wait, actually, what happened to Kobani, the Burger King girl?
I don't know. I don't think they ever
Right?
followed up on it. Did they?
Right? Because Denji protected her from the 1,000-year spear or whatever Makima threw at her. Because she was like, oh, you're fast enough to dodge, but is she? The typical shonen shit.
Right.
And then Denji blocked it for her, but I don't think we've seen her ever again after that. Like, I
No,
can't think
because
of.
didn't he block it by like jumping on top of her and then he like fell down? Maybe he just crushed her. I don't know.
That would not be out of character for this show, not gonna lie. That would that would definitely be to be expected because it is the unexpected, of course. But yeah, Chainsaw Man, super good chapter this week. Absolutely loved it. Do we have a number two pick?
My number two pick for the week is a tie between Mashle and Jujutsu
Mm-hmm.
Kaisen.
Okay.
Love them both. Jujutsu Kaisen, obviously, always really good. It was a little action heavy. There wasn't so much on the dialogue side this time, except for
Mm-hmm.
the moments with Mekamaru, where
Mm-hmm.
he, I think, kind of fades away and he explains to everyone, he asks them not to go to Shibuya because he thought Toto was the only one who had a good chance of getting back okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, they're all sad about it. And then we got some excellent action panels with Toto and Itadori versus Mahito, which
Mm-hmm.
was very, very good. I love action, like any kind of action with Toto involved in it, just because
Mm-hmm.
the constant way that the scenes are the scenes are shifting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. I love the trick where Mahito found out at the last minute that he doesn't have to do a living thing. It can
Mm-hmm.
be an inanimate object as long as it has cursed energy that switches.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, Toto drops the Black Flash, which was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's getting the Black Flash now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
like
that
Super Saiyans
spread
at this point.
of Toto, Itadori, and Mahito all like together, where it says they're all operating at 120% now, was
Mm-hmm.
really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mahito going in with the weird body hybrid Cerberus thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was just cool. It was all just kind of silly action, except for the sad stuff in the beginning. But it was cool
Mm-hmm.
silly action. And then
Mm-hmm.
Mashle just kind of tugged the heartstrings a little bit. We got this, jerk sorcerer who's killing everybody, and we're finally at an opponent. I think this is pretty much the only time, other than the headmaster of the school, that
Mm-hmm.
we fought someone that Mash could not beat by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that little moment where the guy's ready to give up, and he's like, we suck. Everything sucks. We're too
Mm-hmm.
weak. Just let it happen. And then he remembers back to the sweet little moment with his mom, who tells
Mm-hmm.
him that, like, yes, we're born privileged, but that doesn't mean that if you're not born as privileged as someone else, you can't do what you need to do, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't help other people and stuff like that. And then he kind of teams up with Mash at the end there, and it ends with an extremely satisfying face punch, like one of the most
Yes.
satisfying face punches that we've had in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I feel like Mashal does, especially those like big impact panels, it does so well because there's so many of them as well. There's like, I feel like almost every other big villain gets defeated with like a really satisfying close up of them getting punched, which I love. I really like Mashal's art style and how the artist brings out that sort of depth to these things. He's also probably the only artist right now in Jump who uses like artificial blurs in his art, which
Hmm.
I just keep loving because it's cool. It looks nice. It gives it a lot of depth. And yeah, as you said, like this entire chat was basically one long build up to that big punch, and I just love it. I wouldn't put Mashle that high in my list just because I felt that Jujutsu Kaisen was quite a bit stronger. Also, because I'm just personally more invested in Jujutsu Kaisen than Mashle. Like, I've known Itadori for a bit longer than I have Mashle. But still, it was still a very good chapter, and I had a lot of fun with it for sure,
Yeah,
for
one thing
sure.
that makes it stand out a lot to me, at least, is that this feels like we're reaching a transitional period for
Mm-hmm.
Mashal, because up to this point, Mashal has largely been One Punch Man at Hogwarts,
Mm-hmm.
and every single person could never touch him, no matter what. He was just constantly bodying everybody, even the fights of the last few chapters, up until this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're kind of hitting the point where that's not going to be the case anymore, because unless
Mm-hmm.
they tone the power down going forward, um, Mash has hit the point where he can't keep just soloing everybody. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
start transitioning into probably a little bit more traditional combat.
Mm-hmm.
But then they didn't really make it like, I don't know, it didn't lose the spirit of it, because you still had the high right at the end, just the deadpan face, and of course the major punch. It feels like we're moving forward into the series evolving a little bit out of the
Mm-hmm.
silly gag element into a more solid, proper battle series without losing
Mm-hmm.
its spirit, which I like a lot.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like well, it has like 30 chapters or something now. So uh that's tendentially where you'll see stuff like a big paradigm shift happen like that in series. And I think it's probably because at that point an author is relatively confident that they won't get canceled outright. Because if you've managed for 30 weeks, which is, more than half a year pretty much, you're probably safe. And I think that's where people get experimental. Like, you can see that in a lot of series. You can see it in Black Clover. You can see it in My Hero. You can't really see it in Jujutsu Kaisen because Jujutsu Kaisen is kind of crazy from the start. Same with Chainsaw Man. But the 30 chapter mark seems to be where a lot of authors start to get confident because they're like, okay, I wasn't canceled yet, so now we can actually, move forward a bit.
Right, right. And then honestly, I think my number three is a tie as well. So I'm cheating really hard and picking five chapters this week.
That's okay.
But it was Dr. Stone, which was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely incredible this week. We meet a new character. We've landed in South America, and we're kind of figuring out where we're going to go from here and what the goal is. We're inching closer to discovering what the cause of the light that petrified humanity was. And then we've also still got the present threat of Stanley chasing after them to try and get back Dr. Zeno. It, there's so much going on right now, and
Mm-hmm.
the series is not at all shy of reminding you, like, oh, hey, this really awesome thing happened. But by the way, all this really bad stuff could still happen at any time. So even like the
Mm-hmm.
really mundane stuff has this sense of like urgency and dread to it. Really good. And then my other one is Undead Unluck again.
Oh.
Super cool chapter. I
Mm-hmm.
love this woman's powers, the crazy manga artist's powers. I like seeing
Mm-hmm.
Fuko pull a gun on someone, so she's not totally useless
Yes.
all the time now. It
Yes.
was just really good. My hero probably comes in somewhere around there, around Undead Unluck. I could probably have
Mm-hmm.
interchanged them, but I didn't care for the My Hero chapter too much this week because it felt like it was a bit
Mm-hmm.
of a cop out. Like they posed the big question
Yeah.
and then they answered it in like three panels, and they're like, okay, let's get back to what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, uh, with my hero, it's like it was fine, but it kind of dropped the ball on what it set out to do. Because it was like, okay, we're gonna have an Ochako and Toga chapter, but psych, it's actually just a Toga chapter. And psych, it's not even a chapter, it's like 3 pages. And it's like, okay, like you want to keep the momentum going, and you developed Toga a nice bit, and you had her like bounce off the fact that Ochako is more of a hero, obviously, and like have that tie into how Toga feels about losing twice and whatnot. Like, yeah, no, that's fine. That's, it's a decent bit of progression, but man, you can't just set it up like that and be like, yeah, by the way, only one of these is getting to shine.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, Chaco got her little moment where she's like, I can whip stuff around with my floaty
yeah.
powers, and that was like it. I don't know. Her
Yeah.
Ochako's character development seems like every single arc, while other people are doing really important stuff, she gets a panel where she's like, "Should I like Deku or not? I don't know." And then someone gives her some conflicting advice, and she's like, "You're right. I'm gonna do that." And then she goes
Uh-huh.
back to doing nothing for like an entire
Mm.
arc.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I don't find it that bad personally. Like I think her whole deal is basically around um trying to become dependable on herself, being able to rely on herself, and being able to suppress other things she might be wanting to pursue. That other thing being Deku, obviously. Which, combined with her whole motivation about being rich, being morphed slowly into wanting to genuinely save people and genuinely save heroes specifically, that's a cool concept. But like we're 300 chapters and 6 years into this series, and I've been saying, just wait, she's gonna get real good soon for like 2 years now, and it's like, how much longer do I have to wait, right?
I wonder how much of
Um,
this stems from the fact that in the very beginning she was billed as like the power trio, like the Naruto trio with him,
yeah,
Ida, and Uraraka. And then they've
yeah,
completely abandoned that to switch the power trio to Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
that's
wonder how much of
possible.
that makes it feel like she's taking too long.
Probably, actually. I mean, I know people that are still really, really into Ida and really hope that he's gonna get more. And it's probably the same thing here, where the initial setup kind of betrays what they ended up becoming, which is like, series evolve, it's fine, I get it. But like, I also really get it if someone is super disappointed by this. Um, because of course, My Hero does not really have an outstanding female cast. Like most of them are fine. You have your Mirkos who are like super badass, but that's only been a very recent development. So yeah, I can definitely. Well, personally, it didn't bother me too much. Like I still had fun with the chapter. I can definitely see why people would be starting to get a bit annoyed at that. Um, but moving on from this, I really like the finale of the chapter. I think we're in for some good shit now, finally. After, a break and two controversial chapters, I think from next week onwards, we're getting into the good stuff because, you know, 2 chapters left until the end of year break. Dobby is there. Every time I see him, I basically turn into a monkey. Really, I like, I point at the screen. I'm like, him. He's about to do something.
I feel like I've been
Uh,
doing that for 3 years too.
yeah, right.
Anytime now, Davi's gonna do something cool, and then he's like, "All right, let's
No.
leave."
Oh my God. If he does that, if he actually does that again, then it stops being funny, not gonna lie. Like, up until now, it's kind of been a big meme, and I'm fine with it. The black speech bubble was like pushing it, but I'm still okay with it if something comes now. But oh my God, if we end this arc and Dobby has literally still done nothing, um,
It's
A,
possible.
it's possible, and I will probably have to start deducting some of my praise for My Hero, and B, I'm gonna stay the fuck away from Twitter.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Twitter's gonna be a nightmare.
it already was today, man. Like, I logged on after doing like my uni homework, and I saw a bunch of people shitting on My Hero, and I was like, oh boy, time to defend a couple of children's cartoons again.
The main thing out of this chapter, because for me, it's just like next week. I mean, hopefully the action after this point, obviously it's gonna be mostly action. Hopefully it's not consequenceless action. I'd like to see some, maybe not heads roll, but I want to see some people go down, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the most interesting thing for me for this chapter is Toga going to shift to being a bit darker?
Mm-hmm.
Is she gonna be a bit more outright villain now, as opposed to like playful and silly?
Mm-hmm.
Because she seemed kind of genuinely heartbroken when Ochaka was
Yeah.
like, "If you're gonna be a bad person, you're gonna, bad shit's gonna happen to you, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna protect you from it or whatever she thought might happen."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. She seemed genuinely really upset, so I would like to see her become less of a Harley Quinn and a lot more of like, maybe not edgy per se, but less silly with some more actual goal involved. Because right now she seems like she's just along for the ride because she likes
Yeah.
hanging out with these dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I I kind of want a shakeup in the league after this arc because it very much feels like there's kind of two factions at this point very much. There is the Stain followers and Shigaraki's dudes, and then there's Dabi, who's like whatever at this point. He's like kind of both and kind of none. Um, and I feel like the loss of Twice and now Toga's shakeup needs to have some kind of consequence. Like straight up, if Shigaraki doesn't care about Twice's death, I'm calling it right now, that's trash. Like he needs to care. There needs to be someone there like that actually brings that up, and for it, the league needs to like as a unit react to that, because otherwise we're getting into like, you know, shonen typical shonen villain territory where it's like, oh no, my subordinate is dead anyway, you know.
I don't know. So there's two ways they could go about that. One, it could be exactly like you said, and he can be like mustache twirling, because when
Hmm.
Magna died way back in the Overhaul arc, which feels like it was 17 years ago now, um, he was pissed and he immediately jumped and just started to kill people, like getting ready to kill people outright.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I guess they could either say one, that still happens and he's really upset about it,
Hmm.
which would be in character up to this point, or two, he doesn't care at all, and that's your signal to the audience that he's becoming more of a shithead with
Hmm.
like absolutely zero redeeming qualities whatsoever. Because he's
Hmm.
always been kind of a shithead, but in a way of like really bad stuff happened to this guy, and I get it. Like
Hmm.
his life sucked, and so it's hard for him not to be awful. And like maybe someone helped him out, he would be less awful. So that might be
Hmm.
their transition to there is absolutely nothing redeemable about this guy now because Twice is dead
Yeah.
and he don't care. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't like that, but that is a
Hmm.
way I could see them going with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's possible, but as you said, I don't think it's the ideal way. Like personally, in my magical little world where everything is written the exact way I want it, um, what will happen is that he'll find out about Twice, the shock of which will kind of force All for One out of his head for the moment being. And whatever happens, happens for the rest of the arc. And then Shigaraki's next order of business is to get into prison and get All for One and basically convince him, hey, you don't get to mess with my head and you don't get to influence my actions anymore because this whole shit was your idea and it got Twice killed. And I feel like that would be another interesting way to take it, because I think villains and villain groups are at their most interesting when there is an actual kind of chemistry between them that goes beyond you are weaker than me, therefore you must obey me. Where it's like, you know, they care to a certain extent. And the league definitely seems to lean into that a bit with 2 weeks ago when Spinner was like, oh, Toga, do what you must, but come back to us, please. It's like, you know, they're kind of they're kind of hoodlums, but they do care for each other. And I want that care to be an active element. I don't want it to just be used for, as you said, oh, Shigaraki is now totally evil and there's nothing we can do. Like, I hope it remains a consistent and salient part to the story, because I think it just makes them more interesting to follow.
So how do you feel about the potential? I don't know if I would call it a fan theory, but I've seen it thrown around. That Shigaraki goes off the rails and certain members of the league team up with the good guys.
I had actually not seen that theory until now, but it is very in line with all the other MHA theories that haven't come from me, which is that they're all kind of garbage. Um, I don't think I'd like that. I think that is kind of that's it sounds like the plot of a movie. Not gonna lie. It sounds like the plot for a cool action flick, but I think in the long term that would kind of be weird. Like the whole point of this war up until this point has been basically, you know, villains versus heroes and whatnot. And for that to be reversed just because the villains are like, oh no, Shigaraki is too far gone, yeah, no, I don't think I like it. I'd have to think about it more like for a longer period of time to really pin down why I don't like it. But just off the top of my dome, I don't think I like it.
The only one I could see doing that without it being really obnoxious is Toga, and I don't know
Hmm.
how that seems after what happened this week.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know. I like
yeah. I
Dabi. I
mean,
don't see ever being like, okay, we'll be a semi good guy. Like maybe
yeah.
Spinner because he mostly just seems like he's a stained Ninja Turtle fanboy.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just too many of them don't seem like it makes sense for them to do that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would almost even say Spinner above Toga, because Toga, as much as she seems like kind of in between things, at least up until this chapter, she is still a cold-blooded murderer. She has a long track record of, draining people of their blood. Um, Spinner, from what we know, might not really have killed all that many people, and he seems relatively averse to the idea of it. Like when they're attacking in the forest and when they're doing their little highway chase scene in Overhaul, he seems relatively, you know, he's on board, but he seems kind of doubtful of the fact that this is really what Stain would have wanted. So,
Right.
and especially considering that Stain acknowledged Midoriya as worthy, perhaps that could factor in it. But again, I don't think I'd like that all that much. I mean, Dobby is a redeem. Dobby has literally burned people to death, you know, in out in the open in the street. Like he isn't there a scene in right at the start of Overhaul where they say, "Oh, he's out recruiting people," and you just see him like setting an entire alley on fire and saying like, "Oh, none of you were good anyway." It's like that's a bit hard. Like it's not Naruto telling Obito that he's the coolest guy ever level, but it's kind of the same principle, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess if they get to the point that Shigaraki is so gone that it's just self-preservation, maybe.
Hmm.
But I don't see any of them making a face turn.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, also, it sounds like one of those theories that would happen at like, if they would happen at the very end of the series.
Hmm.
Because it would, be under the predicament that Shigaraki cannot regain his old self again, and he, is completely mangled into this beast. But I keep saying this arc is definitely not the end. Like, absolutely not. So I don't really see that happening here. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of another case in my tally board of the fandom coming up with theories that might be fun, but I personally just, makes my skin crawl.
Yeah,
There's so
I'm
many
not
of them.
huge on it. Like I don't really like face turns in general in a series
Hmm.
unless the character is very obviously like in between. I never really like it
Hmm.
when a character who's pretty much firmly a bad guy decides they're
Hmm.
going to be a good guy now for no real reason other than like friendship. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I would prefer it not happen, but
Yeah.
I'm not as invested in my hero as you, obviously. So if it does, I won't be like devastated.
Oh no, like if the fucking Bakugo time traveler theory were to happen, I would actually fly to the UK. Well, not right now, but when it happens, I'd fly to the UK, find Turtle Quirk, who's the guy who came up with that theory, and I would very firmly place my hands at his throat and press ever so gently.
Let's hope Horikoshi's not reading that theory then, huh?
Oh my God. No, the problem is that theory actually has a good chance of happening.
Oh
Because
God.
that second user, his silhouette looks a lot like Bakugo. Uh,
Yeah, it does. But Bakugo also has the most generic anime hair in the entire world, so
that's also true. I mean, I saw someone say that no, it's not Bakugo, it's actually Dabi. I
I
was
saw
like,
that tweet.
okay. Yeah. I mean, okay, everyone's all for one now, one for all now. I mean, I saw someone make the theory that the series ends with like every human on Earth getting one for all, so it's truly one for all, and I wanted to shoot myself 3 times
Oh
in a row. Like,
God. So like it's not a superhero society anymore because everyone is a superhero?
yeah,
Oh God.
yeah.
No thanks.
Oh,
I'll
no,
pass.
thank. And then there's the one that shit Victor keeps peddling, Dad for One. Uh,
Oh, that all for or that all for one is Deku's dad?
yeah,
No.
that shit fucking.
It's
Again, the
obviously not.
problem is it could be if you really squint at it, but at this point, honestly, ever since we got this latest chapter in the dream world, I feel like All for One would have revealed it there, if at any
I
point.
think when it comes to Deku's dad, we just kind of need to accept the fact that it's not relevant. And it hasn't come up because he's just not that important. And he'll come up eventually, just
Hmm.
probably to answer some questions, but like
Hmm.
it's not going to be some mind-blowing revelation that actually Jesus gave birth to All Might, who then secretly had an affair with Deku's mom, and the reason the kid is quirkless is because All Might is quirkless before he got One for All or some ridiculous bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be a guy that's off doing some shit. Like Jotaro's dad. Like, we know he has one because he's alive.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
came up because it just wasn't important to what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, okay, with Deku's dad, there is, of course, the whole thing with Horikoshi publicly stating that he will be relevant at some point in the future. Like, he did that at Comic-Con a couple of years ago. And ever since then, that's where all the theories have come up. Because I think before that, people were just like, oh, his dad exists, like, whatever. But when the author comes out and says, oh, yeah, he's gonna be, like, present, people start theorizing. Which is like, people pretend we know nothing about his dad, but we actually do, like, more than we do, for example, about Jotaro's dad. Like, we know his name, we know his quirk, we know his occupation, we even know more or less where he is. So, he's a fucking businessman working in the US and he can spit fire, and his name is Hisashi. So, like,
I
don't know why
he just shows back up and he's just back. He's like, oh yeah, I saw this shit was going on, so I came back to be with my family.
Yeah, no, I mean, one suggestion I've heard that is actually like not terrible is that after this whole thing goes down and they realize that Shigaraki seems to be really interested in Deku, that they send him overseas to his dad.
Oh
And
yeah,
that he
that makes
stays there
sense.
for a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, it feels like My Hero is kind of building towards showing more of the world. And I mean, it definitely seems like My Hero is building towards a time skip at some point, and I feel like that would be the point. Oh, I'm gonna go to the US. I'm gonna attend
Is it canon
college.
that All Might was trained in the U.S.?
Oh my God, the movie canonicity.
Is it canon or was that all for the movie?
So here's the deal. The movies are considered canon. However, they're considered canon in the sense that the Japanese consider things like canon, right? Where it's like, yeah, it happened on screen, so it probably matters. We have no clue. I would say the first movie with of course, All Might studying the US has a higher chance of being considered canon since it has a manga tie-in that is brought up in the manga. So I don't know. I think it is perfectly adequate as a like tie-in for All Might's story. We know canonically he's gone to the US after his master died. That is, I think, brought up specifically in the manga at one point. We don't know if he studied there per se, if he just, beat up bad guys in the alleyways, but I don't know. Like, the movie canonicity for MHA is so frustrating. Because it's like, oh yeah, Horikoshi worked on this, so it must be canon, but then you get shit like Heroes Rising, which is like, if that is canon, oh no. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I've seen the ending.
Oh, so you know what happens at the end?
Yeah, I know that they share the powers and then somehow they go away and it's just back to normal. And
so
All Might's like, don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, it's so... Actually, that's not even the dumbest part of the movie. This is like a super small thing no one cares about, but do you want me to tell you about it?
Absolutely. I'm never gonna watch that movie.
Okay, so the movie takes place after My Villain Academia, so like Shigaraki's already the big boss and whatever, which is like, okay, cool, just spoil everyone who just watches the anime, but whatever. So there's a scene where there's like an explosion has happened and like the police are on site and Hawks is there like doing his deductive working. Who could this be? And you have Shigaraki sitting on a pile of rubble, like 2 meters away from him. Bright red coat, the most wanted man in the country, and he's just standing there and no one notices him. And it's like, he just gets to like menacingly stand there and you're like, he is literally in like smelling distance of Hawks. It's so bad.
Love it. Love that.
So, yeah, no, that movie.
What a good show.
That movie is the prime example of what happens when you let an executive board write a movie. Because, like, of course, the ending itself, like, the whole sharing the powers, that's on Horikoshi. That was his original plan for the ending of My Hero. That was his first draft. So,
God.
yeah. No, that's on his shit. But a lot of the other decisions are definitely made by people who... saying they don't care about the main series is mean, but definitely have a loosey-goosey relationship with consistency. I mean, I could rant all day about it. Like the characters are all off. The only thing that's good about the movie's animation, yada yada yada. People have probably heard it a billion times. It's not good. Just read the novels instead. They're better, questionably canon material.
Well, all right then. Yeah. So I guess we could have something where he's in the United States, and then it's like, oh, go here and uncover more about All Might's fancy past to learn more about your
Hmm.
powers or something. I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, we talked about My Hero for a fat chunk of the show's runtime. Um,
Okay.
so
Uh,
what are your other selections?
well, My Hero is actually number three, I'd say.
Okay.
Because number two
Because
is
number
definitely
one was
Jujutsu
Chainsaw
Kaisen.
Man, right?
Yeah, number two is Jujutsu. Because I, okay, I'm kind of biased because I actually reread most of the Shibuya arc today. Um, so it just felt really good to go from that into this new chapter. But man, like the action is just so good. The action and the whole flow of the arc are just so well executed. Like there hasn't been a dull moment so far. Uh, and this chapter is just another example of that. We get this really high energy, high octane action scene preceded by a pretty touching moment with Mekamaru. Like, you know, the fact that she's talking to this echo of someone who's now admitting to have had interests in her is kind of really bitter in a way. It's like, oh yeah, we're finally talking, but you're not actually here anymore. You're just this
You're a
weird cursed
little
energy
robot
thing.
ghost.
Yeah, exactly. And you're gonna fade in a minute. Like I like that. I thought that it's stuff like this that makes Jujutsu Kaisen kind of special in a way where it's like the tone is bleak, but it's also weirdly not. Like it's just kind of real and I don't know, genuine. And that's kind of the thing I look for in series, I guess.
Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen does that really well in that like it's very good at juxtaposing action and emotion without either one overriding the other.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to compare it directly to the My Hero chapter this week, but like it felt like so much of the focus was the giant man is coming, the giant man is coming, that when Toga
hmm
kind of had her moment of like, I'm out of here, like that this sucks, it didn't
hmm
for me register quite as hard as like, oh, she's really upset, as much as it was like
hmm
the next panel where everyone's bleeding and screaming and the giant man is here. Whereas like Jujutsu Kaisen will balance them out in a lot of ways that don't require like nobody's yelling, nobody's
hmm
screaming, nobody's like, this is it, this is the end. It's just like, for example, the chapter with Nobara, where it's the flashback of them having a silly time and spilling coffee
hmm
on Gojo's shirt. And then it just
hmm
cuts to her on the ground. And that's it.
hmm Yeah.
It's just, hey, remember this? Oh, here's this. Okay. They're going to fight. And I don't know,
hmm
a lot of series can't do both at the same time. And not that My Hero can't do both at the same time. That was just the first example that popped into my head. Is where it's
hmm
like, most of the time when you're trying to juggle both of these things, one is going to severely override the other one. And it never really
hmm
felt that way with this chapter or with any of the chapters up through like from Nanami to now. Um,
hmm
has never
Yeah.
felt like it's been too hard to keep up with any specific aspect of the characters.
hmm Yeah, I think one of Jujutsu Kaisen's biggest strengths probably is really just that grip on how people act and on how we as the readers will act to it. Um, like the characters of Jujutsu Kaisen are actually really hard to like really pin down as like an archetype because they have a lot of different actions and thoughts that we get to experience. I mean, people were calling Nobara schizophrenic the other week when the anime aired, right?
That was
Because
so
oh, she
fucking funny to me. Oh my god.
it fucking
How am I
was.
supposed to know what this character is like? Because now she's being stern, but now she's giggling. It's like, dude, you got to. Not everyone is an anime pastiche where they just pose and wink.
Yeah, like I don't know. The people in Jujutsu Kaisen just feel layered in a way. Like they have a lot of differing and sometimes incongruous emotions, and I think that that's really interesting. I think that Akutami has that sort of grasp on that aspect of characterization, and I think it makes the series incredibly engaging to follow. Like, you know, none of these characters have so far had like a big moment where they soliloquize about their own characteristics and what they want and what they need, but we've been communicated this just through their words and reactions to seemingly unrelated incidents. So yeah, no, I agree. I really like how Jujutsu Kaisen interweaves them um together, these two very different moods. So yeah, definitely a good fucking chapter. I mean, you mentioned it, kind of everybody's getting the Black Flash now, but
Yeah, but like it's weird because the Black Flash was never really advertised as like the ultimate technique you hone from. The Black Flash is just like when you're in it, like
mhm,
you're in the groove, you're in the zone. And so
mhm,
really these guys getting the Black Flash just means that like nobody's holding back. Everyone is 100%
mhm.
in the moment. Which
Yeah.
is also I kind of like the Black Flash in that aspect too because it's not like yes, you learn it, like Toto taught him how to do it, but like
Mhm,
it's not something you can just constantly do unless you're in sync with what's going on, and it's just a cool concept to me that like you can
mhm,
use the Black Flash as a barometer of like the character's emotions at the time.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's really I do think um if we keep seeing it like every other chapter, it might kind of lose its cool factor a bit.
Yeah, well, I
But
think this fight is the end of Shibuya pretty
yeah.
much. I don't think where there's going to be too much actual like physical conflict after this ends.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because well, okay, there's one fight we haven't actually seen that we know is happening, which is fake Ghetto versus Mei Mei. Is that her name? The chick with the axe?
Yes, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that fight. I don't think they want to throw the whole kitchen sink out with Fate Ghetto right now. So that
that's true.
fight
That's true.
almost feels like one to me that's going to be an off panel, and we're
Yeah.
going to cut to the end.
Mm,
Maybe not. I mean, obviously they could show the whole thing, but I think that the only way they're going to give us the whole scoop on Fake Ghetto right now is if
mm,
they are not super interested in him going forward,
mm.
and we're going to start
Which,
shifting to something else. Which
yeah,
I
which
just
would
don't
be
think it's
kind of
time for that
weird.
yet.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's true. I mean, yeah. To be fair, probably they could show the entire fight with fake Ghetto without revealing too much because I mean, if they just show Mei Mei getting fucking curb stomped by some unknown power, that's already it. Because I mean, fights in Jujutsu Kaisen don't tend to be really all that long. I think now this Mahito fight has probably been the longest one in the series thus far.
Yeah,
Because I mean,
probably.
for the most part, they're like over in like 3 chapters, four maybe. Now this has been going on for 8, so you know. I think we might see like glimpses of it because obviously fake ghetto is like such a wild concept to just throw out. It's it's definitely interesting to me where we'll go next with that. Because also
Yeah,
like
and
will
then
that
they have the whole thing with him that like because his brain is not even in his body, but he's still rejecting it means his soul is still in there,
hmm
or like the body and the soul are invariably linked, and you can't break that link. It's
hmm
interesting. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get all the questions that we want answered about Fake Ghetto soon, including his abilities.
Yeah, that's true. But one thing I do wonder is that because he mentions that one of the big reasons he this brain hopped into Ghetto's body was because he knew he could use it to startle Gojo.
Right.
Um, so I wonder if now that Gojo is sealed and presumably he's going to remain sealed, if he's going to hop bodies again or if he's going to remain in Ghetto for the time being.
That's true. I guess he doesn't technically need Ghetto anymore
Yeah.
for what he was trying to do to begin with.
Yeah, although I suppose he does say, "Oh, but I also wanted like his cursed ability, like the ability to control curses." That's pretty neat, I guess. But yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I guess it could go either way with it.
hmm
I still don't think if he gets a fight, I don't think it's going to be very expansive. Watch me be completely wrong, and he has like a 5 chapter fight with this girl. Um, but I don't know. I feel like the emotional arc of Shibuya has reached its conclusion. I think when
Mhm.
whatever happens in this fight, I don't think this fight's going to be conclusive, but whatever happens here, I don't think there's any you can take it emotionally beyond this point.
Mm-hmm.
With
Mm-hmm.
Nanamin's gone, Nobara's in critical condition, if not gone.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, they have to get her medical attention right now if she's not going to
Mm-hmm.
die. With the whole hint of like, her injuries aren't going to get any worse than they are right now. So maybe if you hurry up, you can save her or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If anything else happens in Shibuya, it will not involve Itadori anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have to be purely expositional setup for whatever's coming next, I think, at least.
Yeah, that's true. Because another thing that just popped into my mind while you were saying this is that now that Gojo's sealed, we are probably going to see a lot more like big, strong villain curses. Because the whole premise was like, oh yeah, because Gojo's around, most of these like super strong curse users are kind of just chilling and underground because they don't want to get caught by literally the walking nuke that is Gojo. So now that he's gone, we might actually get a couple of big bads joining the team, which will be interesting to see what kind of
Well,
people
something's
were
going to have to come
hiding.
because the team is mostly dead.
That's true. Wait, I forgot. Who's
Yeah.
even alive? Is Chozo's still alive, right?
Maybe?
Didn't he leave after Itadori implanted that fake memory into him?
That's a good question. I
think
honestly
he
don't
did.
remember. I think he did.
Yeah, because I was reading the chapter today and he just kind of dips. He's like disgusted by the fact that his memory is tainted and then just kind of doesn't appear anymore. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing he just kind of.
Yeah, okay. So I think you're right. He might have just bounced.
Yeah, then we have Geto and then we have Mahito and well,
That's about it.
Yeah, because Squidman's gone.
Squidman got nuked by Megumi's dad.
Yeah.
Jugo
Hanami
got blasted by
squished.
Sukuna.
Yeah, and Hanami got turned into tomato paste.
Yeah, he
by
got
Gojo.
liquefied by Gojo.
Oh, that's such a cool move, though.
That
I
whole
can't.
chapter is one of my favorites in the whole series.
Yes.
I just
Where
love
you
that like he's stalking them like a monster on the prowl, and like they give him these evil faces and like the slasher smiles and stuff.
Mhm.
Well, it's these guys who are like the bad guys come off as borderline sympathetic because they're just terrified for their lives because he's so strong.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that I really like about that fight specifically is how much it feels like a will he, won't he kind of deal. Because it's like, oh, we're going to use domain amplification to suppress the Limitless. Well, he's just going to turn his Limitless all the way up and in the process kill Hanami. Oh, you're surrounding him with people so that he can't use his domain expansion. Oh, he just uses it for 0.2 seconds to like paralyze everyone without giving everyone brain damage. It's like it's such a cool like chess-like progression.
And it makes Gojo much scarier because every single thing they're like, this is a perfect plan to counter everything he can do, and none of it works.
Yeah.
None of it works.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, Gojo, like narratively, is kind of built up to be the other side's Sukuna in a way. Like this unstoppable force that may just kill you if you don't prepare properly, and even if you do, may still just kill you.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I mean, when they talked about in the very beginning when they teamed up with Fake Ghetto and they were like, what do we do? Because we're just getting killed by these sorcerers and it sucks. And he said the only way you could ever win is if you get rid of Gojo and you get Sukuna back. You have to get rid of their king and you have to put your own up. It's the only chance that you've got.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he's so cool.
He is. He's like the coolest character in the world.
Yes, just for that, I hope he comes back, like not in the too far distant future, because like every time he's on screen, the series like shoots up to a 20 out of 10. It's insane.
Yeah, for a character that the author apparently doesn't like very much, he is like so perfectly designed to be. He's like the most textbook cool thing on the planet.
Yes, yes. Also, like I don't know. Maybe that's just like my dumb ape brain, but his powers just tickle me the right way, you know? Like the whole thing like, oh, I control gravity and repulsion and the infinities, like yes, it's like the same fucking thing that gets me when I see Dobby on screen, you know? I'm just like, him.
I think everyone's like that for Gojo though.
Yeah,
it's him.
true.
It's Gojo. The more I was thinking about it, the more I feel like he might be back sooner than we think he will be.
You think?
Well, I was thinking about it because they took him out of the story here. It's been about a year since he was taken out. We're bordering on 11 months because I think
Yeah.
he was sealed around the 25th of January, sometime around there, whatever chapter dropped that week. So we're bordering on 11 months without he's not the main character, but realistically, he's the flagship character of the series.
Yeah.
One, I don't know how long the author will keep him gone for that reason alone. But two, I think that you're right about the sheer volume of like curses that are going to start coming back. And so I think we might have an arc where he's still gone and they bring these other special grade people back. And then I think in the process, because there's only 4, and one of them's dead and now evil, and one of them is sealed.
Yeah.
And I think that after this next arc, Yuta will be the one that is able to get him out because of the way that Yuta interacts with cursed energy and his ability to basically manipulate it however he wants. I think him coming back will be what eventually brings Gojo back.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think that Yuta's introduction into the main story is imminent. It just feels like,
I mean, he got straight up name dropped by Gojo when it happened. He's got to be coming soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I also think it's about high time we got to see what the fuck Yuki is all about, the other special grade, because she has straight up not appeared outside of flashbacks yet.
She has not appeared outside of flashbacks, and she was never like... Even when she showed up, she was never excessively like a good person. She was kind of... Because I remember Geto was talking to her about like, maybe we kill all the regular people. And she was like, you do what you got to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it'll be interesting to see what dynamic that she plays if she comes back, because she's certainly not going to step into the role that Gojo is in now, or is mostly in, where he is the, she's not going to step in and be the enforcer. And I don't know that Yuta would either, but he certainly seems more believable for that position than she does.
Yeah, that's also interesting because of course we're getting the prequel in January properly translated, so I'm really interested to go back to that and then to see if and when Yuta comes back in the main series, how his character might have changed as well, because of course Jujutsu Kaisen takes place 1 year after the prequel, so perhaps he's also gotten to be more mature, maybe also more cold-blooded, which is the whole thing with special grades, right? That they are so immensely powerful, but they all seem to have a couple of screws loose, one way or another.
Yeah, I could see. I don't know. It's going to be interesting too, to see how. I can't imagine with Yuta being the protagonist of the prequel and then Itadori being our boy now, that they don't spend any time together. I feel like they're going to spend a very decent amount of screen time with one another. So I'm going to be interested to see how that relationship blooms a little bit, because Gojo has always kind of been the anchor that kept Yuji around.
Yeah.
And kept him like, not necessarily as part of the team, but kept him grounded in what's going on. He's kind of been like his safety blanket,
Yeah.
He's kept Yuji like eyes on the prize, and he's given Yuji the idea that he can keep growing and doing these things. And he's been the one guy, other than Megumi and Nobara, that have always been there for him from the beginning, no matter what.
Yeah.
And Yuta, I don't think is going to step into that role. I don't think anyone else is, because that's going to be Gojo's gone. It's going to be a little bit of a time to grow up moment for Yuji. But I wonder if Yuta will be the one that, because I honestly don't remember. Has the Jujutsu Society backed off of being like, fuck it, we want to kill him no matter what Gojo says?
No, they haven't, which is another thing. After this arc, that might be a plot element again.
Right, because Gojo is gone. And that was a big thing in the Cursed Womb, that like they wanted him to get killed because Gojo wasn't there to save him.
Yeah.
And now that's the case now, but I wonder if Yuta will put the kibosh on that too, out of respect for Gojo.
Could be. I mean, Another thing that might happen is that Yuta helps Yuji kind of awaken his own innate curse technique, because of course right now Yuji is still doing kind of getting by with makeshift techniques like his divergent fist, which is really just I'm forcing cursed energy into my body, hoping that something good happens, but there's no real technique yet. So I'm wondering, because Yuta is of course also a user of a very non-standard technique, if he can help Yuji awaken whatever is in, whatever he has, and whatever maybe that like memory manipulation shit is that he keeps randomly doing.
Yeah, he just seems
So
to do it sometimes
yeah, yeah, like
for just reasons that no one can seem to figure out. Yeah, I do like that idea as well.
mhm.
That, and I kind of just like the idea of like it's a fan theory that I don't love, but kind of like, is that he will eventually sort of co-opt Sukuna's technique,
Oh
like
yeah,
against Sukuna's will, sort of like as they keep like, the more fingers he gets and the more like harmonized, I guess, they become just over time,
hmm,
he'll be able to
yeah,
start using that, and it will give him the ability to start using reverse curse energy
hmm,
without
yeah,
having to haggle with Sukuna, because Sukuna is
hmm.
still kind of a giant question mark. Like, he did a bunch of shit in Shibuya just to be like, ha, fuck you, kid, and like he's got a plan going on, but we really don't have any idea what it is.
Yes, yes, because I mean uh, okay. So the first really suspicious thing about Sukuna is of course his relationship to that monk person, who he recognizes immediately when he sees them. Uraume, I think she's called, or him, or whatever. And she greets him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's been a while. Are the preparations ready?" And then it cuts away from that. Um, he also still hasn't made all that much use of the binding vow with Yuji, right?
Pretty
That he
much
can
none.
switch.
Pretty much no
Yeah, that
use
he
at all
can.
of it.
Yeah, there's that. Then there's the whole scene where he kills Jogo, where he's like, "Stand proud, be strong," and he's like, "Wait, why did I say that? I don't know what the fuck's going on." So maybe there is something to it that they are slowly merging, that there is something going on there,
Right.
which is
I
just.
mean, I would assume that because, like they said, no one's ever been able to do this before,
Hmm,
so they don't really have a barometer of like how it's gonna go. If Yuji
hmm,
can just like, oh, I'm just gonna possess him forever or whatever, like a thing that someone could do.
uh-huh.
Um, I don't know if I would love to see it go that way or not, because I like the dynamic of him having like a superpowered evil side that does not give a shit about him.
Hmm,
Because even like as far as Sukuna cares, if he dies, whatever. Like back when Yuji was like, "Oh, if I die, you die too," he was like, "It doesn't matter. I have bits of my soul everywhere. Fuck you, kid."
hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
liked that, and I just kind of hope that we keep a similar dynamic between the two of them. I don't want them
Mhm.
to devolve into being more or less just another like, oh, you know, I'm his angsty Super Saiyan form, but I'm kind of
Hmm.
a good guy-ish.
Yeah, you don't want it to turn into Naruto and Kurama.
Yes, yes, none of that.
Mm.
I don't want him to be like, oh, I'm just a bad curse because people were real mean to me when I was young, but
Yeah.
now you're
Uh,
nice to me, so it's making me strong and nice. Like, I kind of want the two of them to start influencing one another in ways they don't really like. Like, I
hmm.
like the idea of Sukuna being like, what the fuck? Like, am I being nice like the dumbass kid? And then I like the idea of like Yuji being like a bit more of a jerk and then having to rein
Hmm.
himself in a little bit because there's a little bit of influence from both sides.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
I just kind of
Yeah.
hope we go somewhere that's not Kurama, basically. Just please don't be Kurama.
Basically, please don't rip off Kishimoto. There's nothing worth ripping off.
Yeah, like ripping off Kishimoto is just like, why would you do that? Why would you do that
Yeah,
to yourself?
just rip something actually off that's actually good. I mean, okay, we already spent last episode like just shitting on Kishimoto. I listened back to that, like the entire final half hour is just us ripping that man to
Well, okay,
shreds.
don't rip off Kishimoto and also don't make him White Ichigo. I don't want either one of those things.
Okay, yeah, fair.
I want him to be
Um,
his own character with his own motivations that just happens to be stuck in Yuji's body, and I want it to stay that way.
but I also think that that's kind of not really possible that it'll devolve into something like that with like Kurama, because like you know, with Kurama at least, I don't know much about Bleach, but with Kurama at least it was like um you know, this is just a wild beast who's killed for self-defense or whatnot. Like, whatever, okay, fine. Like, Kishimoto, you're doing your thing. With Sukuna, it's straight up, oh yeah, he's like terrorized humanity for thousands of years and actively hunted people down. It's like, again, we're back at Obito being the coolest guy ever, right?
Right, yeah. Like I don't want that to happen either. I don't want Yuji. Yuji kind of seems like the character that could, because he's like the kind of happy-go-lucky doof.
Hmm.
He seems like the character that could be like, I've reached an understanding with him, and he's not all that bad, and like I don't want that.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
I don't think it will, because after Shibuya he like seems kind of broken on Sukuna, but
mhm.
I just don't want them
Yeah.
to get to the point where they're like still trying to be bros.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole tone of Jujutsu Kaisen kind of prevents that from happening anyway, just because of how much it has focused around, you know, death and conflict and violence are natural parts, and sometimes there is no good reason for why something happens. Sometimes people are just bad and violent, and sometimes people just die, and, you know, you have to move on and you have to deal with it and you have to do what you think is right. And I think, you know, Yuji kind of starting to befriend curses would be very shonen, but it would also kind of run counter what the series has been thus far. Um, just one other thing on Sukuna, I still need to know what the fuck it is that it is about Megumi that he wants.
Yes, he is like all about him, and I
Yeah,
don't
because
know why. And it's not, I guess, like super concerning, because on one hand it kind of is like, oh, he's gonna kind of have Megumi's back, but like, what about his powers does he want so bad?
well, okay, the whole thing is right. The Ten Shadow technique is that you fight a Shikigami or a curse, and if you exercise it successfully, you can like make it your servant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can also just store a curse without exercising it, and then, you know, just make a ritual so that when you have your buddies with you, you can exercise it then. That's like the whole thing he did with General Mahoraga
Mm-hmm.
earlier, right? I'm wondering if Sukuna wants to use that to take control over something. Uh, that
Maybe,
would be
but
like my
part of me is
first
like,
guess.
what could it even be? Because he's supposed to be the toughest there is.
Hmm. I'm wondering if it has anything to do with what's his name? Noritoshi Kamo, the most evil Jujutsu sorcerer in all of history, who has been mentioned once. Because that guy keeps sticking in my mind. Because he could be so many. He could be fake Geto, or he could be what Sukuna is after. Or, I mean, maybe Sukuna has an idea of what the rest of Megumi's 10 shadows could be, because of course we've only seen 5 of them so far, and we know he has 10.
Right.
So, and maybe he has like an idea like, oh, the 10th shadow is Jesus, whatever. It's like I need
Ultra
that.
monster beast guy. Yeah.
The 10th shadow is like Gojo. That's how they get him back.
They unseal him by the 10th shadow being Satoru
I,
Gojo again.
I mean, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, big brain theory crafting here. Megumi and Gojo did spend a lot of time together, and a Shikigami is technically just something you summon out of the, like, I don't know, shadow realm or whatever to help you. Like, now hold on. That could actually work. That's a viable path, actually.
Just gonna pull him out. He's just gonna pull him out and make him a Shikigami.
Yeah, he's just summoning him, and then afterwards he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm breaking the contract. You can go." And Gojo's just back out again.
He's just back in the prison thing. Oh
Oh,
god.
oh man. But yeah, what a fucking story. Like, if there's one thing I don't like about Jujutsu Kaisen, and that is probably the biggest issue right now in the Shibuya arc, it's just that the flow of information is kind of odd. There's like so many moving pieces. It's sometimes hard to keep track of, like, who's where and who's when and who's who, you know?
Yeah, I do think that is largely by design.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, I don't know, Shibuya kind of feels like one of those arcs where it's like, oh, you guys ain't ready for what's coming next.
Yeah.
Shit's about to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's very much by design that they want to keep you in this position where you're constantly like trying to follow each moving And then you get, the big drops like Sukuna saving Megumi and being like, oh, how's the plan coming along? And then it's immediately on the back burner because Dabara got her head exploded and like all this shit's going on. And
Yeah.
it just reminds me very much of like the end of Stardust Crusaders, where
Mm-hmm.
all of these really major things are happening, but you really don't have that much time to like process and grieve because you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly in the next thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, Kakumi got his gut exploded. There, I should be really upset right now, but I can't because Joseph is running for his life and Dio's after him. And oh, gee, Dio caught a knife in the neck, and I can't process that right now either because now he's fighting Jotaro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just back to back to back, beat in your face constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's designed that way because I don't know that he wants you to 100% know what's coming next or even really have a good idea.
Yeah, I do get that, but I also think that Jutsu in general has a bit of a weird way in how it handles telling you things. And I think the best example of that is just the way the power system is presented, where, people can read the entire manga and still not really have a good grasp on how it actually works. And I think some of that has to do with, of course, people speed reading because that's what people do. But I also think a good bit of it has to do with the fact that information is kind of presented in a very here's the thing. Oh, here's another thing. Oh, and here's like 30 other things. I hope you memorize that. Okay, let's go. Kind of
I
deal,
I blame him idolizing Togashi for that one.
Yes. Yes. Another person you probably should not rip off, but oh my God, I don't want to get in that kind of worms. Oh, I've received fun messages over my opinions on Togashi.
I love Yoshihiro Togashi, but I will be the first one to tell you the man is crazy and it just does whatever he
Mhm.
wants.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, he's a very creative individual and someone who works very hard, and that is very respectable. Personally, I can't say I've gelled much with Hunter x Hunter. I love not Jujutsu, Yu Yu Hakusho, the other Yu Yu show. Um, I love that one quite a lot. I can't say that for Hunter x Hunter, but
I also prefer Yu Yu Hakusho to Hunter x Hunter. I think Hunter x
nice.
Hunter has a tendency to showcase a few more of his bad traits
Mm-hmm.
than Yu Yu Hakusho does, but I think part of that's probably because it was written almost entirely while he was in a state of ailing health,
Yeah,
whereas he was healthy for the majority of Yu Yu Hakusho up until
the
uh,
end.
the end. Yeah,
Yeah, one of the more unfortunate chapters of Shonen Jump, I suppose. You
yeah.
know,
All of their authors keep getting sick. Air quotes.
yeah.
Totally not overworked, just random illness.
Yeah, just they caught a cold for like 2 years straight.
Hmm
Don't worry about
He
it.
caught a cold and that crippled all the discs in his back. That's all it was. Had nothing
Oh
to do with
man.
him constantly working.
Okay, though. You see, that's the thing that gets me with Togashi. Like he ended Yu Yu Hakusho because of his ailing health, but then he started Hunter x Hunter like what, 2 years later?
Something like that.
Like yeah, like that's a bit. I don't want to blame him, but it definitely feels a bit like there could have been a bit of a smarter way to go about that, I feel. Especially since isn't he really adamant about not having too many editors and assistants as well? Or is that Oda? I can never
Well,
remember.
it's that he doesn't want to offload it onto somebody else. Because a
Yeah,
lot of
there you
people were like,
go.
well, why don't you just write the story and then you can have someone else do all the art because the art's what's killing you because you're sitting there drawing all
Mm-hmm.
day. So it's like, why don't you just write it and then give it to almost like a Toriyama Toyotaro kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he is adamantly like, no,
Yeah.
only
Yeah,
me
like
is going to be the one that does this. But
yeah,
I
which
get
I
it.
mean,
I mean, I think that you're right that it's like there probably were a million better ways you could have gone about this that
mm-hmm.
would have made it easier on you. But I get it to an extent that like one, I don't think the guy wants to feel like he can't do what he loves to do anymore because of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of
And
course.
two, I understand that like if you have a story that you want to tell, you want to tell it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be like, I have this really awesome story that I really like and I think people really like, but I don't want to draw, so I'm never gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, of course. I mean, there is also a tremendous amount of pride that goes into it, and why shouldn't there? Like, the man is writing an absolute beast of a story, and he's clearly very excited about it. So, yeah, no, I totally get that, but it's also kind of hard to because these are very active decisions that he also has made. I'm starting Hunter x Hunter. I'm not offloading it. I'm continuing, you know, as I always did, after my previous series got kind of shot in the leg by my health issues, it's kind of hard to really stay on board as much if you know that the author is kind of self-destructive in that way, right?
Yeah.
Because
Like I
like
know they
it's
had the interview where he said like actually I don't know if this is internet bullshit or an actual interview because I haven't looked for it, but where he said that
Mhm.
if he ever becomes completely unable to finish Hunter x Hunter, his wife will.
Okay.
Um, but it's like what's your barometer for that, dude? Because you're putting out one chapter every 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
it's like
what's your barometer for being unable to finish? Is it that you
we've
literally can't work anymore? Because we're basically at that point.
yeah, I mean we've had in the time since the last Hunter x Hunter chapter, we've had almost 10 Berserk chapters.
The scariest factoid of them all about this.
Yeah, like Miura I am willing to give a bit more shit to. Cause like him he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm writing this super popular manga that people are really like interested in. Let me drop it for like a couple of years to like build a new studio and teach a bunch of assistants to draw a completely different manga." It's like, okay, like you do the hustle, but I'm kind of miffed.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get that too, to an extent, because it's like, you know, you save the craft. It's about the craft. It's not about the product or
Y-
whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, of
it
course, and
it's also about the product.
yeah, and I mean, his whole. I remember reading that his whole justification for that was that he wants to train those assistants so they can actually help with Berserk. But it's like, dude, Berserk has been on a constant hiatus cycle for almost 2 decades at this point. How much of that investment is it worth it? Like, how much longer will Berserk go where you need these assistants to help you with it?
Yeah,
Like,
it's not like you're gonna finish and you're gonna be like, all right, everybody, 6 chapters a week, let's go.
yeah,
Like,
like, I almost respect Inoue, or what is his name? Inoue, more for just straight up saying that he's not going to continue Vagabond. It's like,
just being
okay,
like, I'm done.
you're not,
Yeah,
yeah,
that you kind of gotta respect that. You know when to fold, you know.
yeah, exactly. And he realized he wasn't interested in it anymore, or didn't feel like writing the same story after like what 10 years, which like, dude, I get that.
It's kind of
Um,
why I feel bad for Toriyama because he's like, yeah, I'm done with Dragon Ball, and then the internet's like, but are you really? Because
yeah,
boy, do I have a lot of money in my pocket to
mhm,
demand that you keep doing it. So he's like, all
yeah,
right,
yeah.
let me do it more.
Man, makes you wonder if Oda is ever going to be able to rest. Because I
Oda,
mean,
I think when One Piece is done, he's just going to like fade into the mist like some kind of demonic creature that isn't real. Because what I don't know what is that guy when One Piece is done? Like what do you do for fun? Draw One Piece.
yeah, I
What do you
mean, he's
do on
been
your time
drawing.
off? I draw One Piece. Like
I mean, he's been drawing it since he was 14, so like, yeah, that must be an interesting conundrum to face in
yeah, I'm
your,
saying, man, like
later years.
what do you do now? The only thing you've ever done is over now. What do you do?
He just sets out to like redraw the entirety of One Piece.
He finishes One Piece and he's like, "All right, guys, it's time for One Piece remastered,
Two Piece.
Two Piece."
At the end, Luffy finds out that the One Piece is one of 100 pieces. So
Oh
now
my
he has
God.
to find all
Okay,
the others.
what would you do if One Piece ends and then there's a sequel and it's just Luffy's kid, like
And
Boruto,
he's called Boofy.
Boffy,
Buffy.
Boffy.
No, no. Make it even worse. Call him Roofy, so
Oh
that
no.
everyone gets confused. Because he's still called Roofy in a lot of languages. The main guy. Like in Germany, he's still called Roofy.
Oh no.
Yeah,
They
the good
just make a
old for.
sequel where it's his kid and like it's the kid of all the old crew. It's just like Nami's kid, and it's the exact same thing. They just
Yeah.
find her on an island, and she's like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the legendary pirate Nami's child," and she's like, "Yeah, but I don't like my mom for whatever anime reason. I don't like my mom."
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh my God, look at this swordsman. Are you the son of legendary swordsman Zoro?" And he's like, "Yes, but I
Like
use 4 swords."
They meet Nami's kid and they're like, "Oh, you're like the daughter of Nami," and she's like, "Yeah, but I don't like my mom. Her proportions are not realistic."
She put a bad image out for women.
Yeah, and then they find Zoro's kid, and he's like, "Oh, so do you like your dad?" Nah, he has too few swords for my liking. He like has an entire like
I was
smithy
never
following
able to
him.
get as strong as my father, so the only way to strike out on my own was to get even more swords than he had.
He's like fucking Killer Bee from Naruto. He's like 8 swords.
Swords just in every like orifice.
Okay, though, to be fair, Killer Bee from Naruto is fucking sick when he uses the
Yeah,
sword
Killer
with like
Bee's
his
cool as fuck.
elbows.
Like, straight up.
Yeah, so at least it would be ripping off something good.
Yeah, I can't hate on Killer Bee. That dude's pretty sick.
Ah, that dude is so awesome. But actually, speaking of One Piece, I don't read it, but I saw a couple of people be kind of complaining about, the paneling and all that again. Like, every time I see a One Piece panel these days, I first have to think, is this like a fan-made collage? 'Cause-
Yeah, I don't think his paneling is like exceptionally bad on average.
Mhm.
But then you get those spreads that are like a wall art painting, but it's also bordered by panels
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
don't like necessarily go in sequence.
Mhm.
It's very weird. I don't. And you get the One Piece fans who are like, "There's absolutely nothing about this that's even remotely confusing," and I'm like, "Dude, there's 14 panels on this page, and there's a backdrop image I'm supposed to be following. What do you want from me?"
Yeah. And then there's Oda's, where's Waldo ass drawing style, which also
Yes,
doesn't
where
help.
every character kind of looks like a Looney Tune, so you have to like keep up with which Looney Tune you're seeing.
Yeah, yeah. You have to give One Piece fans a break. They've been reading garbage for 20 years. I'm so mean on this show. I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting to me with like, we were just talking about Hunter x Hunter
Yeah.
and how it's never going to ever come back, and it's like, oh my God, my drip of Hunter x Hunter information is here for the year. But at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time, it's so funny with One Piece fans, and it's everyone else is like, oh, I really love this series. Oh, it's over. Oh, now I'm a huge fan of this one. And One Piece fans are just like, yeah, the only thing I've ever experienced is this one show. It's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, that is the appeal of One Piece. You started watching it when you were 6, and now you're fucking working 9 to 5, and Luffy is still on the seas.
Luffy is still out here fucking vibing.
Yeah, Luffy is still the exact same character, but don't tell them I said that.
Oh, dude, don't. Easy. Easy. This one's going on your channel this week. There's only so many comments you can handle.
That's
Easy.
okay. Don't worry. After I tend to read comments for like the first day after upload, and after that's usually when the fun stuff begins, and that's when I bow out because, oh boy.
When the 5-paragraph guy finds it.
Man, fucking the paragraph guys and comments are so funny because sometimes you get some really interesting stuff, but then you get those like 9-paragraph replies that start with "you fuckhead,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's like
We have one guy that watches the show that I love to death because he's on the comments of every episode, and he leaves like 3 comments and they're all really long, but they're all like participating in the discussion. And even when he doesn't agree with us, he's like, I can see why you would think that. This is kind of what I would take my take on it, and it doesn't necessarily line up with yours like outright. And I'm like, shit, I love this guy. But then you,
Wait.
like you said, you get the ones who are like, I can't believe you're this fucking stupid to not know this obvious shit. It's like, oh, okay, we're doing this today.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think I know which guy I mean. I really appreciate commenters like that. I really appreciate when there's like a discussion happening. But y'all, and this goes to people listening, you gotta realize that if you insult us in the first paragraph, we're probably not gonna read the second. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Or
only so
if
much
I
space
do
we have.
read it, I'm never going to take it seriously.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, I thought Black Clover was bad this week. I can't believe evolution failed us. It's
I
that
can't
kind of
believe
deal.
humanity has fallen to this level. And I'm automatically like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good not reading the rest of this.
May the wrath of Socrates strike you down, for you not see the brilliance of the Elf arc.
Oh my god, what was it? The Elf arc is
Oh,
the best arc in modern
best-
shonen, and you just don't get it at all. And I was like, god damn it.
Oh,
This is the world that I'm in now.
oh man. There's such beauty in like a bunch of children telling a literature student that he can't read. I get that like every week, like, oh, you just need to learn how to read. Like, dude, I read for a living.
It's
Like,
all you do is read.
Yep.
Not that you're
Literally.
like inherently like I don't want that to come off as like he reads the mostest and the bestest
Oh
of
yeah, of
everyone.
course, of course.
But it's like I wish people could voice conflicting ideals without it having to be like, actually, you're deficient as a human because you didn't
Yeah,
get
right.
this. Like, people who don't like whatever thing aren't like shittier readers than you. They just have a different taste than you.
Yeah, you know, me being like a literature student doesn't mean that my opinion on anything writing related will automatically be better. It's just that telling me, someone who reads for a living, that I cannot read is just a super fucking funny statement.
And it's
It's like,
always
you know,
weird to me when you get the comments like that because it showcases this lack of like being willing to admit that this thing you like is anything other than perfect.
yes.
Because I have bad news. A lot of shit you like sucks. A lot of shit everyone likes sucks, man. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
just how the world works, dude. Like, just vibe with it. Like the rest.
yeah, like it's just such an unfortunate thing that people have this thought lodge in their brain where it's like the only feasible way someone can disagree with me is if they didn't pay attention. It's
Right, or
like,
like it's only possible for someone to think this thing that I like is not the greatest thing ever, as much as I do, is if they just don't even like they can't fathom it in their tiny brain.
yeah,
And it's like
yeah.
maybe they just don't like the aspects of it that you like. Like I always get this all the time about Gon because I hate Gon
Mm-hmm.
so much. I hate him. He sucks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I always get people who are like, "Oh my god, like you don't like Gon, but he's meant to be a shitty, off-putting asshole." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"I don't care. I don't care how much it's by design. I just don't like him. He's a dick."
You know,
And they're
if
like,
I
"Oh, so
decided,
you don't acknowledge like the brilliance of making him a shitty, off-putting asshole?" And I'm like, "No. I
you
get it.
know,
I just don't like it. It's not because humans are that don't like the thing you like are dumb. It's just that the thing you like isn't always good by default."
yeah, I mean, if I design like a piece of shit car that's meant to be a piece of shit car,
Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't
mean
matter
everyone
if
has
it's
to
by
like it.
design. The car still doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the brakes don't work. Yeah, that's by design, buddy. Like, oh, I'm
Yeah, I
still
built it
dead.
ironically. So,
But yeah, you know, it's just this whole thing where people, because it's of course easier to just say, oh, everyone's stupid but me. Um, you know, because then you don't actually have to engage in any self-criticism. And I mean, there's of course the whole thing that we are talking about cartoons, so like how much self-reflection do you really need to do about these things? Like, for example, with My Hero, if someone comes up and is like, hey, actually I don't like it for these and these valid reasons, I'm like, that's valid, but I don't really care. Then I just kind of move on, right?
yeah, that's weird too.
So
What is it with separating that like someone not liking a thing you like doesn't like mean that it should impact you as a person?
yeah, exactly.
That person didn't
But
just come up to you and espouse support for white supremacy. It's just like My Hero kind of sucks. And it's like, okay, whatever.
every time I hear My Hero and like racism or white supremacy in a sentence, oh boy, I get flashbacks. This
Uh-oh, was there an arc about Twitter saying it was racist?
Oh my God, there was an arc where I think it was just one guy who was really convinced that Horikoshi was a Nazi because the MLA is apparently very Nazi-like. Like,
Because they're bad guys?
okay. Yeah, they're the bad guys and they're like they have a power structure. I guess that's Nazi. Like,
That's
okay.
weird too, is like it's not just a US thing either before people start whining about like woke culture because like it was really bad in Japan, especially with like Time Paradox Ghost Rider.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that like the depiction of anything negative in your series other than violence is like a tacit acceptance of it.
yeah. Right.
Like there was the
Yeah, no,
big
that
thing with Time Paradox Ghost Rider where like there was plagiarism in it, but it wasn't depicted as good. It
yeah.
was depicted as like a moral dilemma that he may or may not have made the right choice about. And the
Yeah.
immediate response was like, I can't believe the series is glorifying the horrible crime of plagiarism. It destroys art. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
there's nothing about it glorify. Like bad shit happens.
yeah, it's just like, I mean, that's something in all media. That's, not at all limited to anime and manga. It's like there just seems to be this, I don't even know what to call it. I can't even say it's like a modern idea. I'm sure it happened before, just the internet didn't exist yet to amplify it. But there seems to be this idea around that including an element in a story is by giving it exposure, accepting and glorifying it, which is like, no. By that logic, every single movie ever made probably glorifies murder and voyeurism.
Yeah, it's really
And it's
weird to
like,
me how violence is also like not included in this whenever this happens.
nah, I mean, that's true, but that's, because we've gotten so desensitized. It's the whole thing, nipples on TV, nah. But guns, sure.
Guns and
It's
viscera and like horrible wounds and blood, it's like whatever. But a
yeah,
lady
I
nipple,
mean,
think of the
fucking
children.
look at Chainsaw Man. It's like, oh yeah, guts spilling, that's good, but we need to censor nipples. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That's true.
yeah, I mean, it's just a double standard that kind of exists globally at this point. Uh, I couldn't tell you why. It's probably something historical with how we've always been very open about war and bloodshed, but we've kind of been very repressed about sexuality for most of our existence. You know, especially once the church came in, but of course that's a whole different story to perhaps
Getting a little heavy now for
that kind of breaks the limits of what we can discuss in a podcast like this.
Yeah, we're moving out of Shonen to chill, but we're starting to make
It's like
critiques on society.
it's like, oh, I wonder what they're talking about in Shonen and Chill this week. Let me tune in. So yeah, anyway, the church lies to you.
So anyway, guys,
Anyway.
Kishimoto, not very good.
Okay, do we have anything else? Do you want to do your lightning round?
Yes, my lightning round. Okay, so real quick. Ignoring the ones we already talked about, I'm also going to exclude Mashle because I talked about it at least extensively. We've got Mission Yozakura Family was real good this week. We're kind of moving into a new plot point there. Very cool. Check it out. Magu-chan, super cute this week. It was like a Halloween chapter. Very funny. Spy Family dropped today. As always, incredible series. It was just a completely cute chapter, but it is a slice of life series, so you know what you're getting into. And Phantom Seer, good this week. We're finally delving into the main character's like past and why he's such a dick, and it's very interesting. So that's my lightning round. There was not as many as usual, mostly, also partially at least, because we talked about more things than we usually do. But
yeah, it finally wasn't the Jujutsu Kaisen cast. I mean, it kind of was, but
50% of it at least was. It's still the My Hero Jujutsu Kaisen show, but we talked a lot more about Chainsaw Man today.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what people expect. Like, My Hero is my favorite series in the Shonen Jump lineup right now. Jujutsu Kaisen is about your favorite show, right?
It is my favorite in the current magazine, yeah.
Yeah, so like, well, I don't know what they expect. Like, hey, yeah, so we have these two series we really like, and we're not going to talk about them. For, like, some
Also,
arbitrary quota.
I hate to break it to you, but they're the best ones. So like, sorry. We gotta talk. We don't want to talk about what sucks. We're gonna talk about what's good.
Yeah, like,
Actually,
oh, bro.
we spend about as much time talking about what sucks based on last week's tirade.
I mean, that's true. But I mean, we never have like 20 minutes per episode where we're just like, oh yeah, by the way, Roboco was bad this week again.
Yeah,
You
well, like, I feel like if we have to do that, it should just be understood that like Roboco was bad this week. If we don't ever talk about it, just know that it wasn't good.
But hey, it referenced the Jujutsu Kaisen anime ending this week. That makes it good.
Oh, it's a super great show because of dumb reason. Whatever.
Yeah, it's Roboco is like, it's so cool because it keeps referencing other series
I
instead of
hate
actually.
referential humor, dude. I hate it so much.
It's like it hasn't managed a single chapter yet without referencing some other Jump series, right?
Well, I think that's what the whole point of it is. It's like a comedy series poking fun at the medium,
Yeah.
which I guess is fine because like Gintama did that, but like
hmm
Gintama also was interesting and cool and good, and this is
Well,
not.
yeah. Well, yeah, because like, being like a sort of meta commentary on the medium can be more than just, oh hey, isn't it funny that we mentioned this one thing from another show? Like, I
Roboco
haven't
feels a
seen
whole lot like more like Family Guy than it feels like an actual clever critique of shonen.
Hey, Lois. I'm in a manga.
Remember that time that I had Yuji Itatori over and he danced in our living room?
It cuts away. And
It's just
Yuji
him
keeps
doing the
dancing.
ending dance.
Oh man.
Oh god.
Do you think the Japanese watch Family Guy?
Oh, my neck
Okay.
hurts from laughing.
For me, it's the cheeks. Okay. All right, fellas. Have a nice whenever you're watching this. Oh, wait, Zen, what about the giveaway?
Oh, I'll contact the winners directly, and then I'll
Okay.
talk
All
about
right.
them next week.
Okay, so we have all of it settled then. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, have a wonderful week. See y'all next week on Zen's channel. Take care, be safe in these trying times, and see you next time.
Wash
Bye
your
bye
hands.
from
Wear a
me.
mask.
Yeah, wash your hands, wear a mask. PSA.
Bye.
Bye.